Okay, cool. Welcome to another episode of Stay on Topic. I am Radicraze. Good to see. I can't see none of y'all. Glad that you beautiful people are here. I hope you're doing great. Hope you're in good spirits and good health. If you're not in the South, I just want you to know we are living in an active volcano inside of a giant stove with jalapenos for comfort food. It's really hot right now, and a bottle of water will do you a long way, so please drink your water. Stop walking around here drinking slushies and wondering why you about to have a heat stroke. Drink about 5 bottles of water, then drink your slushie. Please, I'm begging you. Anyways, great to be here, man. If you clicked on this video, obviously you're here to listen to me talk about the new Black Widow movie from Marvel Studios rather than a possible heat stroke from somebody. And I'm here to do that. If you don't know me personally, then I'm here to tell you I am a huge MCU nerd, fan, stan, whatever other words that you can come up with. I'm a big fan of most of the characters. Tony Stark, I feel like, is one of the best written characters over a long series of movies. Same thing with Steve Rogers. And I just love the connectivity and the consistency of the stories that they tell and how they continue to keep it fresh. I know a lot of filmmakers, like I believe it was Martin Scorsese, have these criticisms of the MCU movies, which aren't really criticisms, saying something isn't cinema when you have to go to the cinema to watch it isn't really a criticism. It just comes off as you hating. I don't know where it comes from, maybe because it makes a lot of money. It just prints money, but it prints money because it's fun. And even if you're not going just for fun, some of these movies have great stories, great actors, and you're just going to enjoy yourself, period. 9 times out of 10. So with the Black Widow movie here, I'm going to start off with just my basic thoughts about the movie. So anybody that hasn't seen the movie, you'll get kind of a gist on if you want to see it or how soon you should see it, your priorities, whatever. And then I'll give you a heads up before I start to go into the spoilery stuff. I'm not going to have much to say before the spoilery stuff because I don't have a good filter. I'm going to do my best though, alright? Okay, so to put it plainly, Black Widow is a movie about what Black Widow was up to in the gap between Civil War and Infinity War. I kind of assumed that her and Cap were on the run together, kind of like in Winter Soldier, where they spent basically the whole movie together, dodging the law. But that turns out not to be the case. It's kind of cool that this movie does explore a hole in the story where we just don't know what was going on, and something that we would assume has not much significance since obviously this movie isn't really referenced in Endgame and Infinity War, and I'll get into that a little bit later. This movie has big themes on family and a lot of good action in it, of course, because Black Widow, she kicks ass. She's really good at it, obviously. And if you don't think this is a summer blockbuster because it's about spies, because it's about a woman or whatever your thought process might be, you're wrong. This is a summer blockbuster from head to toe. It has all the explosions, all the fighting. It has everything that you want in a big summer action movie. So if you like big fun movies, you like family movies, you like Marvel, yes, go see this movie. This movie did exceed my expectations, with one of my biggest criticisms only being the fact that this movie was released after Endgame. I'm going to say this because Endgame has been out for a while, so this doesn't really count as a spoiler. I wish they released this movie before she died. The character. Not Scarlett Johansson. She's fine. You know what I mean. Don't make my wife beat me up. I wish this movie released before Black Widow died in Endgame because I feel like her death would have so much more significance after we saw this movie. Because after I saw this movie in the post-credit scene, it made me actually feel like, man, she's dead now. That really sucks. But when it happens in Endgame, I don't know if anyone else felt like this, but I didn't feel like her death was given a lot of significance. And the way that she died, I didn't like it. For her to be one of the OG Avengers who has already not gotten enough attention, in my opinion, out of all the OG Avengers. At first it was Hawkeye, but after Age of Ultron, it became her, and she just never really caught up with everybody else. For her to go out like that kind of sucked to me. I felt like it should have been Hawkeye because he had his moments, he had his time in the spotlight in Age of Ultron where it's like, hey, you're the guy that keeps all the Avengers together and all that. But her dying like that, I did not like that about Endgame. But this movie made me, like, if I go back and watch Endgame after I've seen this, I will feel differently. I will feel like it's more significant. What else can I say that's not spoilery? This fight has some of the better fight choreography, in my opinion, in the MCU. There's not like 50 million cuts in every fight scene, and I really liked how the hits felt. Because like some movies, when somebody gets punched or thrown or slung or whatever, some movies it's just like, psh, and it's like, oh, okay, he got hit. But like this is one of those movies where it's like when somebody gets hit, you can feel the impact, you can like hear it, and you can see it. Like the practical effects are really good. There's a lot of scenes of Black Widow just like really taking some damage. Her getting like slung into stuff, or her like punching the crap out of somebody, and like you feel it. And I really like that about this movie. So some of the scenes, they hit a little harder, literally and figuratively, however you want to put it. There's obviously a lot of Avengers references, but there's no, in case you're wondering, there's not going to be any Avengers popping up. So if you're hoping for that, like, oh, what if Tony makes a cameo or Steve? No, she is the focal point of this movie. She's the only Avenger in the movie, which is good because she deserves the spotlight since it's her movie. And there's some funny moments in here, of course, with it being a Marvel movie. There's not as many comedic moments as most of the other movies. It's a little more story driven than it is comedy driven than a lot of the others are. And last thing before the spoilers is the villain. The villain Taskmaster is he's kind of a robot, I guess you could say. He's like a robot that's programmed to like kill Black Widow. And it's what's really cool about him is he has fighting traits from others, like other Avengers and Black Widow herself. So he's a very formidable enemy. And it kind of reminds me, if you've ever played Sonic Adventure, the original Sonic Adventure on Dreamcast or the DX version on GameCube, he reminds me of the robot from Amy's Story. I forgot what his name is. It's like this big green robot. And in all of her stages, Amy's like supposed to get to the goal so she doesn't get caught by this robot in all of her whatever story stages in the game. And that's kind of what the vibe I get when Taskmaster pops up. Like Black Widow's trying to do something, he pops up and he's like, oh, I'm gonna catch you, and she has to figure out how to get away or do what she's trying to do while avoiding Taskmaster. And I think it's kind of a cool dynamic that they have going. Okay. I think I've rambled enough without spoilers because I don't think I can go around anything else. So here's your warning. Spoilers are coming up. I'm going to give you like 5 seconds of some kind of silence. Yep. Oh my God, I didn't start counting. I'm pretty sure 5 seconds have passed. Okay, we're about to do spoilers now. All right. So, in spoilers, first thing that I thought about after I saw the movie, other than the post-credit scene, and we'll get to that, is that there was no reference specifically to Bruce Banner / the Hulk. So, with that being said, I just want to say that I really wish that Age of Ultron could be redone without that subplot of her and Hulk being like a couple. Because it came out of nowhere, and then after the movie, it's basically never referenced again. In Infinity War, when they reunite, they awkwardly say hi to each other, and that's it. In Endgame, she dies, and Hulk's like, I'm upset. But everybody's upset. He doesn't seem more upset than everybody else. So it really bothers me that this is her movie. So if there's any time to talk about like her love life or whatever, this is the movie. So they're confirming like, hey, that basically never happened. So just forget it. I do feel I am one of those people that think that Age of Ultron is heavily underrated and is kind of crapped on by people unnecessarily. But that is one of the few things I will not defend it on. That subplot was really stupid. And this movie just solidifies how stupid it was because no other movie like touches it at all. So that's a thing. I wanted to say I really like the running jokes that these Marvel movies are so good at doing. Some of them even spanning over multiple movies. This movie has one that I thought was pretty funny with Widow's sister making fun of how she does her superhero pose when she lands, kind of like Deadpool used to do. He used to, in the first Deadpool movie, making fun of the Iron Man landing. She makes fun of Black Widow's landing that she's been doing ever since her introduction in Iron Man 2. And she even like copies it and mocks it at one point, which is, I thought that was absolutely gold. Speaking of, I thought she was funny. She was a good character. She was one of those side characters that wasn't annoying. And I look forward to seeing more of her in the future, which we will based off the post-credit scene, probably in the Hawkeye show. Her parents were cool. The dad was pretty funny. The backstory was good. I did enjoy the backstory of her being an agent, basically, as a kid, and being with this fake family in America as a child, and then going back to Russia to do training and becoming the assassin that she is. That was backstory that we really needed for her because it's been foreshadowed for years. Her talking about how bad her past was, and we don't know anything about it. We just know these little bits that she's given us. And so after seeing it, it makes me connect to her as a character a lot more. Makes me understand why Black Widow is the character that she is. And again, to cycle back to what I said earlier, this is why I wish that we knew this and we had all this information before her death. Because it makes her death so much more significant now that we connect to her much stronger than we used to. Beforehand, when she was just like, or we just knew she was the assassin with a troubled past. What was the troubled past? She went through some kind of training. She was what's the proper term to use? She was medically made to not be able to reproduce by whoever turned her into the war monster that she sees herself as. And she feels like she has no family other than the Avengers, which is why she cares about them so much. And this movie expands on that amazingly. So I will always wish that we had this before her death, so it hits so much harder. But hey, I'm glad we at least got the movie, because otherwise, if we never got this Black Widow movie, then I would just continue to feel like her death was in vain. Because when it happened in the movie theaters, I was just like, did she really just die? She's probably going to come back to life later. And then when everybody else comes back to life and she doesn't, it's just like, wow, she's just going to stay dead like that? That sucks. So I'm glad they gave some significance to her character. Other than that, the villain. The twist with the villain, I didn't care for. Taskmaster ends up being like a secondary villain. The real villain is the guy that runs the Red Room, the guy that controls all of the widows, who is the reason that Black Widow and her sister are so jacked up in the head and turned them into assassins. And he does this to women all over the planet, and controls them and uses them to start wars or end wars, whatever he wants, basically. It's just this rich, power-hungry guy. And Widow was under the impression that she had killed this guy, I believe she said, or she had gotten to him by killing his daughter in an explosion that she didn't want to do, and his daughter was a child at the time. The child ended up surviving, and the child became Taskmaster. And this guy, the villain, I can't remember his name. It's not that important. But he is a very hateable villain, by the way. I do think he was a good villain because he's not one of those guys just like, haha, I'm evil, and then he loses by the end like some other guys in MCU. Just his dialogue and the stuff that he does really does get under your skin, and you're like, okay, I actually hate this guy, so he must be a good villain. Taskmaster, on the other hand, I didn't like the reveal that Taskmaster was actually old dude's daughter the entire time, and she was just being controlled like the other widows. I didn't like that. The only reason I did not like that is because it felt like a cop-out. I liked learning the fact that all this time where Black Widow's been saying she's done these horrible things in the past that she'll never live down, and having like this dark past, this dark side of her. This movie basically infers that's what she's talking about for the most part. That she killed a child willingly to further her own ambition to get freedom from the widows. And I liked the fact that we had an Avenger like that. An Avenger that really has blood on her hands that she can't clean off. And that in retrospect, her entire storyline up until her death is her trying to redeem herself. So her sacrificing herself for the Soul Stone to bring back all the people that got killed or erased by Thanos has, again, a lot more significance because she feels like she's done so much bad. She's killed children. She's done all this bad stuff. Like, this is the least she can do to, try to wash that blood off her hands is by sacrificing herself. I like that. Through the movie, when we found out about that, I was like, that makes so much sense why she always feels so guilty. Anybody would feel guilty for the rest of their life if they killed a child. That's like one of the worst things you can do. So I really liked that about her character because it made so much sense. So I felt like it was a cop-out for the end of the movie to come and be like, haha, well, she wasn't actually dead. She was the evil Taskmaster all along. It's not actually a robot. It was my daughter. So you don't have to feel bad anymore because you're a hero. I feel like that was a cop-out. Like, she should have stayed dead. Taskmaster should have stayed just like a robot, cyborg, whatever. And that's just something that Black Widow has to live with and has to overcome for the rest of her, as we know, short life after that. The fact that, yeah, I killed this child and it was a bad thing to do, but that doesn't demean or take away from any positive things I've done since then or that I will do going forward. I like that, but that's not what we got. So I didn't really care for that. There were some CGI shots in the movie that weren't that great. Overall, like as a whole, it was straight. But there was a few scenes where I was just like, man, that looks like green screen. But most movies are going to have a few shots where it just looks kind of iffy. The main shot I'm thinking of is when Natasha's sister destroys the plane that the main villain is in and kills him. By the way, that also wasn't a very satisfying way for him to die, in my opinion. But whatever, he's dead. When she puts her staff down in the engine or whatever and it blows up, it looks like a stock explosion in the background and she just jumps out the way, and I was just like, oh, okay. But again, not a big deal. Other than that, before I get to the post-credit scene, some real quick hits. I feel like this movie was written after Endgame, or the fact that maybe that Endgame and Infinity War were not written with this movie in mind if it was already written. Just because a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie, I feel like would be referenced in some way, shape, or form in future movies. It's weird that Endgame and Infinity War occur with no reference to her I guess you can't call them adopted family. I'll just say family. Her family. Um, I do feel like she would have. Well, not her. Well, I feel like her family, or at least her sister, would have like turned up in Endgame to help. The widows that they saved would have been part of the group that fought against Thanos, and we just would have been wondering for some years, like, who were they? Why were they there? Which, sure, I guess could be weird at the time, but like seeing, again, this is probably a good reason why this movie should have came before Endgame. Um, but yeah, the fact that they're never mentioned or nobody really pops up or she doesn't make like a one-off statement that alludes to this movie is kind of strange, but I'm sure that's the explanation for it. This movie wasn't written yet, or it just wasn't far enough along for them to have it included in the plot, which I believe that kind of is kind of the issue that went with Captain Marvel and Endgame, where Captain Marvel had to make her introduction, but she ended up filming. Brie Larson ended up filming her scenes for Endgame before Captain Marvel, so I'm sure that was weird. I feel like this movie should have been in the time slot that Captain Marvel was in, because Captain Marvel ended up like they gave her movie so she could be in Endgame, and she was in Endgame for what? Altogether in Endgame's runtime, she's probably in that movie like 10 to 15 minutes, if that. I feel like that's like highballing it. She literally was only there to save Tony and to blow up Thanos' ship. That's about it. Yeah, at the end, she struggles with Thanos to stop him from snapping and shows that she's much stronger than him until he kind of swats her away, and then we never see her again. But I feel like other characters could have did that. Hulk could have did that, and it's like, oh, just struggle with Thanos for like 5 seconds until Tony can steal the stones from him. Yeah, I wish Black Widow would have been in that time slot. Like, give a post-credit scene to Captain Marvel or something. I don't know. It just would have made more sense to me. Anything else? Because now I'm just kind of rambling. But that's what I do. That's why this show is called Stay on Topic, because that's really all I'm good at. Oh, big thing. This movie, aside from the significance of her death, this movie made me wish that she was in that little scene in Endgame with all the women team up. I know a lot of people don't like that scene, but it doesn't bother me because obviously it was filmed for women. It's like, hey, women power, like that's fine to me. I don't see a big deal with it. Obviously it's a film, so things that happen in film are not realistic. There's a talking tree and a boy with spider powers and all these other things, and people had a problem with a bunch of women being in the same place at the same time and saying, we're going to fight together. Sure. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was cool. And Black Widow should have been at the front of that. That's what this made me feel like. This movie made me like Natasha Bedingfield so much better. Okay, I think that's all that I can talk about before I get to the post-credit scene, which is the last thing, obviously. So the post-credit scene is it hits kind of hard, man. It didn't make me cry or nothing, like the end of Endgame. That shit made me cry. Natasha's sister goes to visit her tombstone. This is the first any scene in any Marvel film that we've seen past Endgame or past the Infinity War, the Infinity Saga. We have shows in this period, but this is the first scene in film that we've seen truly in the Phase 4 time period. She goes to her sister goes to her gravesite, and up pops up the Veep lady. Man, what's her name? It's Julia something. Julia, I don't know. She's the lady from Veep. I don't really know anything that she's from. I've never watched Seinfeld. I know she's in it. I don't really watch it. So, you know who I'm talking about. The Julia Dreyfus lady pops up. Now, if I had not watched Falcon in Winter Soldier, this would be super confusing to me. But since I watched that show, and I enjoyed it, by the way, seeing her here makes the theories start piling up. Because she popped up in that show to talk to U.S. agent John Walker and kind of like help him out. And now she's popping up again and seems to have Natasha's sister on her payroll. So it's kind of starting to give me these Nick Fury vibes where she's picking up different people in Phase 4 to make her own team of Avengers, which is worrisome because, as we know, John Walker is unstable, and now she's getting Natasha's sister to go after Hawkeye because she doesn't know Hawkeye. She doesn't know that Hawkeye didn't actually murder Black Widow. It was more of a self-sacrifice type thing, but now she's going to go after her, and she's probably going to be a villain in the Hawkeye show on Disney Plus that's coming out soon. So that's something to watch. Nick Fury's probably still in space doing something, but if this lady, the Dreyfus lady, if she's actually like Nick Fury in this shit and she's making her own team of Avengers 5 is going to be wild. Especially if MCU and Sony are still playing nice. We know that Peter Parker is probably going to have a big role since his entire character arc is succeeding Tony, who's kind of the face of the Avengers. So I really hope that that's something that ends up happening where we have like the new Avengers versus these more evil Veep Avengers. That would be great. U.S. Agent versus Captain Falcon and Spider-Man. I'm here for it, bro. I will buy 3 tickets to go see that. I'm not even playing. But all in all, I'm just ranting now. All in all, I give this movie a B+. It's good enough to go see more than once in the theaters. I recommend going to the theaters to see it because for me, seeing stuff in the theaters is the best way to experience it because there's no guarantee you're ever going to be able to watch something in theaters again, so don't waste it. So if you've seen it, tell me what you like about it, what you hate about it. Do you like Scarlett Johansson? Do you like her family? What'd you think about the post-credit scene? And be nice to each other, drink water, have a good day, wash your hands. Deuces.